In this video, we will do a window trim installation inside of a shower. We have a custom walk-in shower here, and there's a window behind the panel. So we'll cut out the Onyx panel where the window is, and then put in a window sill, all the window jambs, and then casing around the window, and then a little apron underneath the window sill. It's a very general video. Every window is a little bit different, but this will teach kind of the general concept of the window installation for shower applications. So our first step, we'll just kind of drill a hole, and I'll probably just cut a hole right in the middle, measure over to get somewhat of an exact measurement to the sides of the window, and then I'll put a level and plumb it up and mark my edge of the window here and here. Do the same on top and bottom, and then I'll jigsaw cut around the window and pull the panel out. Once that, I may have to do some touch-up cuts, and then we'll go ahead and set the window sill, put the jambs in, put the casing on, and then put the apron piece in at the end. Once the hole's cut, we'll just measure over to double check where the side of our window is, and make a mark right there. Make sure it's plumb, which it should be. And we'll do that around all four sides so we have a good outline of where the window is. Then we'll go ahead and jigsaw cut that whole piece out. Once we have our window outlined, drill holes in all four corners. Makes jigsawing the corners a little bit easier. And then we'll just jigsaw along the line all the way around the window and pull this piece right on out. Once the Onyx has been cut out, the next step is to measure the window sill. Now the window sills provided, they will extend out a little bit, so what we will have to do is cut the notch out of the window sill for the window, so the front of the window sill will kind of dog ear out a little bit. The reason it will come out is the casing trim that we will use will come down and rest on top of it. So we'll measure up the width of our window sill and also the depth to the face of the Onyx, and then we'll cut out the notch first. So we marked out for the window sill, kind of a little dog ear coming out to the side here, and did the initial cuts with a chop saw, did some of the finishing cuts with a little jigsaw, and we'll go ahead and finish with this one here. And that's kind of our window sill cut out. Okay, with the window sill cut out, set it in place and make sure that it does have a little bit of slope back into the shower. And you want to be able to make sure the water drains out. You can do that by building up a little bit extra silicone underneath the back edge of it when you put it into place. But so far it's good. We're going to go ahead and silicone it into place and then measure up for our jambs, and then we'll go cut those to fit. Now on the jambs, We do want the jambs to come out flush with the front edge or with the face of the Onyx panel. The jambs have a finished edge on the shower side, so we'll overlap that finished edge about halfway, maybe a little more, with our casing trim. So when we measure for our wall jambs, we'll go ahead and measure all the way out flush with the face of the Onyx panel. Okay, we'll set the sill, so we'll just put a little silicone. It does not take much. And we'll set the sill into place. We've got a good slope. Just double check the slope, make sure we're still angled back in, which we are. Okay, now we'll measure up for our jambs. We'll probably put the top jam in first, and then our side jambs. We'll put the top jam in first so that our side jambs will kind of support it and hold it up against the ceiling of the window in here. So just measure to the face of our shower walls again, and then measure all the way around the perimeter. Once we have the jambs cut, just dry fit them. Once again, to make sure they're going to end up flush with the face of the Onyx panel. And you got a good fit. Now the top piece will fit in also. And once you're happy with the dry fit, we'll go ahead and silicone the wall and adhere all of these jambs to the inside of the window. So we've got the right jam siliconed in place. We'll go ahead and set the top jam in. Put little rings of silicone on here. The rings act as little suction cups when you press the jam to the ceiling here, and they do help hold it in place. Left jam piece. Okay. After the jambs are set in place, just double check, make sure they are flush with the face of the Onyx panels. And then the next step is to cut the casing trim. A lot of different casing trim options. For this shower, we're just using the classic molded casing trim, and that'll come right on up. You can install the casing trim a couple different ways. You can either go flush with the inside of the jam, or because the jam has a finished edge, you can hold it back. Sometimes holding it back about 1/8 of an inch or just half the width of the jam piece is a good idea, because that'll give a nice little edge to put the color match silicone bead on. So when we measure for our jams, we'll measure kind of right to the center of the thickness of the jam, right in the corners, and then that's how we'll base our measurements. The window is should be all mitered 45-degree cuts, and then we'll just set the casing in place, silicone it in, and then the final step will be the apron down below here. So after cutting the casing pieces, dry fit them, make sure everything lines up correctly, which it does. And then we'll go ahead and silicone them into place and tape them into place after that. So we have the two side pieces of casing siliconed in place. Go ahead and put the little silicone circles on the top casing trim. Now we'll do some fine adjustments and then tape everything into place. Gotta make sure all the casing trim lines up correctly. Once the casing is all installed, go ahead and put the silicone on the apron. The apron will have a finished end on both edges. So center it and stick it to the wall. Then we'll have to use tape to hold it up into place. Okay, so the casing's all installed, the apron is now installed. We'll have to let the adhesive silicone dry so everything will stay in place, and then we'll come back at the very end and color match silicone it, and it should be finished. You do want to run a little color match silicone in between the jambs and the vinyl windows to make sure no water will get back in there.